The Housing and Development Board says that its pricing approach towards new flats is different from that of private developers. It does not build flats aiming to recover costs or earn a profit, nor take into account construction and land costs in its valuation. Still, land development costs have gone up as more flats have been issued to buyers. In the financial year 2020-2021, land development cost is about 1.8 billion Sing dollars as the HDB delivered about 8,000 units. But in financial year 2021-2022, the cost almost doubled to $3.2 billion with more than 13,000 units delivered. Now, the cost of land for public housing is lower compared to the cost for private housing in the same area. One valuer says that that's as land that's used for public housing comes with restrictions, such as on sale and resale and flat owners' income.
The value of public housing and private housing should be the same, because if it's not, then there's no basis of assessment on the actual utilization of a piece of land. So when you see there is a difference, because the public housing are sold at the lower prices than compared to the private housing, it shows that there is that deficit attributed to a government subsidy for public housing or low-cost housing.
Now, to keep those flats affordable, household income is used as a benchmark to price them. Now, that means that a family with a monthly household income of, say, $5,400 purchasing a four-room flat at $350,000 would have to pay about $1,000 for their monthly mortgage. Now, most homeowners don't pay more than 25% of their monthly income for their mortgage.
They will use the mortgage service ratio and trying to make sure that the bulk, or rather the big bulk of people, 80-90%, should fall below the benchmark of 30%. And how do they subsequently afford to do that is that they will have to determine what is the market value of the flats in the area. That is actually using the valuation approach, which is a direct comparison.
Now, to price new flats, HDB considers transactions of nearby resale flats. It will then apply market subsidies to determine the price difference between those new and resale flats. With subsidies, prices of new flats have been kept stable over the years. And the growth in prices of flats in the past decade is 16% for non-mature estates, and it's 22% for mature estates. Now, new flats are also priced based on their location. Flats in non-mature estates like Woodlands will not be priced within the same range as mature estates like Bishan. Meanwhile, flats in prime locations that are near the city centre like Queenstown and Bukit Merah will command higher prices. A fresh 99-year lease for a new flat is also factored in. And flats on higher floors or facing good views, well, they will command higher prices as well. Projects nearer to MRT stations or bus interchanges or other amenities could also see flats cost more.
More on the story, we're joined by Professor Sumit Agarwal. He is Professor of Finance, Real Estate and Economics at NUS Business School. Professor Sumit, we've just heard all these different factors, these ways in which HDB tries to keep flats affordable. But meanwhile, as my colleague Dawn also said, land development costs are going up. Is this the only challenge in HDB's attempts to keep flats affordable?
I mean, I think they use a very single variable approach, which is we are going to look at what is the debt service burden the homeowner has relative to their income. I think this is manageable for now, but the only thing that could make this unmanageable is if you can imagine a huge population growth. If that is the case, then the demand for housing will go up drastically, and they will not be able to provide housing at this affordable pricing. But I don't see that happening because most of the population growth in Singapore is not because of Singaporean population growth, but because of importing population or bringing in people from outside. and they don't qualify. So I think right now I see this as a very good approach that HDB has in terms of keeping housing affordable for Singaporeans.
Professor Sumit, changes in population size could potentially impact it, but the way that HDB subsidizes and prices flats, is it sustainable in the longer term?
Yes, I see this working out very well because look, right now we have seen this going on for many, many years, tens of years that they have used this exact approach in pricing. So I don't see any reason why we should be thinking that they need to tinker with the formula of keeping housing affordable. I mean, this is the bedrock of Singapore, that we provide public housing for all Singaporeans. And hence, the home ownership rate in Singapore is way above 90%.
Oh, clearly, you have very positive views of Singapore's public housing model. But how does this compare to other models in other countries?
You can't compare. I mean, if you start from Hong Kong, which is collapsing, if you go to America, France, UK, India, in developing countries, where either public housing is given to friends and family, or you create ghettos in those public housing. And Singapore has effectively avoided both because of the random allocation and actually having very strict rules on how you qualify and who qualifies and how you get public housing. I think this is the unique feature of Singapore. I mean, if I think of Singapore, of providing public housing is something that Singapore can be very proud of and exporting this model to the world. But the problem is most countries cannot adopt it because of the challenges they face politically or bureaucratically or just land allocation in those countries.
Professor, pricing of these flats, I mean, as you said earlier, it has been the norm. I mean, it has been a popular way. But in recent times, there have been concerns. People have been voicing their concerns about it. Why has this changed now then?
Yeah. I think in the last 2-3 years, because of the cost going up, hence HDB losing money, and they had to publicly admit that they actually lost, were in the red because of this. Hence, there was some outcry and questions being asked on what is the model they use. If it is a profit maximizing model or is it welfare maximizing model? And HDB has come out very clearly today and said, look, we are not a profit maximizing agency. We are welfare maximizing. We care about making sure there is home ownership for everybody, not only for the super rich or the most people who can pay the most.
Professor, clearly what HDB has, these details released, they would have satisfied you. As you just mentioned, HDB has been very clear. But can you see why some members of the public might feel that their concerns, their outcry, to quote you, those questions may not have been answered for them?
I agree. I think hence clarity is the best model, and which is what they try to do today. That, look, we will come clean and tell you how we come up with our pricing model. I'm not sure. I think this will go a long way to address everybody or most of the people. But I think it's the step in the right direction to be saying how we do this and why we have been taking losses. And those losses are because the variable cost in the last 2 years have been extremely high. Both land acquisition and obviously labor and material. And I don't think this will be the case in steady state. If I look 10 years, 5 years, 15 years from now, these costs will come down. Hence, we will not have these issues anymore.
Oh, thanks so much for that. Professor Sumit Agarwal from NUS Business School.